to University of Florida, IFAS St. Lucie County Extension. We are going to be talking today about all the things that we harvest from our garden and what can we do with them, because lots of times we have lots of tomatoes, we have lots of fruits in our garden, we have all kinds of things, and what do we do with all of them? Yeah, we can give some to some of our neighbors, but there's lots of other ways we can take care of those and have them ready for us when we need them again. So today with us, we've got Carla Lindfesty.
Hi, Anita.
And she's our Family Consumer Science Agent here in St. Lucie County. And she does lots of programming on preserving what we grow. So today she's going to talk to us about how we're going to grow things, right? Yeah.
After we harvest it.
After we harvest, yeah. After we've grown them so very well and we want to share them, how we can actually preserve them so that we have them for later.
Right.
Yeah, because we can only eat just so much at one time.
That's right.
Yeah. So trying to preserve them. So you've brought some really wonderful things today to show us. And start us off when we want to grow our vegetables or fruits, and we have lots of them. What do we want to do? Do we want to use everything we find in the garden? Are there certain things we shouldn't use? Are there certain things we should use more of?
Sometimes, you have an abundance without even planning for it, in that type of thing. Obviously, you want to eat as much as you can, as fresh as you can, because you get the most nutrients then. But you might have a lot in your own garden, or you might have somebody who gives you a whole bunch because they've grown an excess amount or have been abundantly blessed with a whole bunch extra. And there's lots of ways that you can take care of it. Obviously, you can eat it, and eat it as soon as possible, keep it as fresh as possible. Or you can freeze it, and you have to have some precautions in freezing it. Or you can dry it or dehydrate it, certain things that you can if you have the proper equipment to do that. And I would not recommend, the sun is not recommended, so people who want to do that, that's not very safe because microorganisms grow actually then.
So you mean to try to, when you
dehydrate,
say sun, to try to dehydrate
it outside, yes.
Okay.
Or you can can it for things that are fruits and certain tomatoes, that type of thing, that have, excuse me, that could be done in a water bath can, or maybe you remember seeing those big blue kind of speckled enamel pots that you drop jars in boiling water, and you can
make
do
jams
that.
and jellies that way.
Jams and jellies, yes. Or you can make a freezer jam as well and store it in the freezer. Or you can use a pressure canner for anything that's very low acid foods. Need to be done in a pressure canner. So that would be any poultry, meats, vegetables, those type of things.
Oh, I never thought of saving those. But yeah, I think of usually fruits and vegetables.
Fruits and vegetables, right.
Yeah.
But vegetables definitely need to, other than maybe the high acid foods like tomatoes, that type of thing, and some peppers, vegetables need to be done in a pressure cooker as well.
Okay. Well, I guess you kind of think of like a canned vegetable. When you get them, they're not going to look the same as what they did when they were grown.
And that's because for the botulism to be completely eradicated, it has to be at 240 degrees. And a pressure canner, it gets up that high, where a water bath canner gets up to boiling.
I see. Very good. Well, when we're harvesting our vegetables, we talked about eating them fresh. That's when we get the most nutrients. Is that when we should also be either dehydrating them, canning them, or
you want them in the best condition you can to, especially to dehydrate them and can. You don't bruising. I mean, your bruised fruit and stuff. You have chances of microorganisms getting into them. So you can also cook things down, and freeze it too. You can cook vegetables down and put, like you're doing a stew or something like that. You can cook those down and freeze them in small batches, but definitely do them as good a quality fruit as you can, or vegetable as you can, if you're going to be using it, at home.
Okay. I think the only thing that we've ever used that was old was really ripe bananas for banana bread.
Oh, well, yeah.
And we put those in the freezer and save them for when we or a smoothie.
You can mash them up and that type of thing. Yeah. I do the same things with. I used to live in a different state where we grew a lot of raspberries and blackberries, and I would put them on cookie sheets and freeze them so they didn't stick together, and then throw them in bags.
Oh, very good.
But with vegetables, a lot of times with vegetables, you need to, and I guess I should say right up front, is that you should follow a research-based method for doing any of the canning or freezing, that type of thing. And those would be books that you would get through perhaps a canning company. We've heard some of the major, like Ball and Kerr, that type of thing, recipes.
I have a recipe
directions
book from them, yes.
Are most definitely the Extension Service. Those are all research-based. And then there's the National Center for Home Food Preservation, based out of the University of Georgia, and that they have an abundance of information, and that would be the first place I would go to look for anything other than even the University of Florida EDIS documents are really good too. But you should not follow the old-timey recipes, the old cookbooks, or something off the internet, because there's a big risk of the science not being right with those, or the equipment they tell you to use is not really safe and secure nowadays. So,
and they have lots of new stuff always, new equipment. In fact, we purchased a dehydrator like you've made for some of the ingredients here, and that was a big, it was an investment, but I know they make different kinds of dehydrators.
They do. They make several different kinds for home use, and then they have, they have even the round small ones that kind of look like a very large dinner plate, and they have different shelves in them, which are really perfectly adequate for a home. You can do all kinds of things in that. Fruit leathers, dried fruit, even beef jerky, that type of thing. A lot of people use it for that. And then they have the larger ones, like I think we shared. I used to have one, and I had a lot of trees with fruit, and I would do that for fruit slices then. And then like the one, we got a larger one for the extension office that we use for demonstrations. So that even has 9 shelves. So that's great. So when someone is generous enough to give us something that we can use, or we're doing a demonstration, we can do multiple things in that as well. And I know you got a smaller one, and I use all the time.
Right. And it doesn't take very long. You do strawberries, you put them, clean them, cut them up, put them in there, and within a day or less, they're
5 or 6 hours. They're usually, depending on how thick you cut them, I guess.
Yes,
depends
that's
the moisture.
Exactly. And that's kind of where you play around with it, I guess, to see what you want to do.
Right. And there are some really good books. There's books by companies out there on dehydrating. And I know the larger ones that we have, the office actually has a fan and a temperature control on it.
Yes.
And there are, recipes, I guess, directions that you would call for what type of fruit it is, how well it dehydrates, what temperature to do. But then you can do the same thing with a home one. You can play around. Usually there's a really good set of directions in any type of dehydrator you get.
Okay. So there's lots of ways of doing it, not in the sun.
No, not in the sun, and not in the oven. Still, it's electric ovens. The ovens don't go down to 140 degrees.
Right.
So you take the risk of burning things up.
Drying them too quickly.
Losing, exactly.
Because you want to keep the nutrient, right? So when you're dehydrating them at the right temperature, and the temperature...
Well, you want the moisture to come out in an even manner as well. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And what might be the temperature for vegetables would be different for fruits.
For example, I did one of the fruits on there. I can't remember which one. Oh, the pineapple. I think I did it. It was about 155 when I did the pineapple that's on that plate. But the bell peppers, the green and orange bell peppers, right? Those had to be done at like about 120, 125 because they're the density of the moisture in them. Otherwise, they would have been.
It looks like such a healthy little snack too.
They are.
And they're probably great
yummy.
for like lunch boxes. Things of that
They're
nature.
really good. One thing I want to try next, and I thought you might be interested in this too, is I was reading the other day about chips, like zucchini chips and different squash chips, and then you can put a little different seasoning on them too if you want.
Right, like a little chili pepper or something like that. Well, and this is a great idea for parents that are looking for things, because when you try to send strawberries with your child to school for a snack, there's a very good chance that they get squished or damaged.
Exactly.
And when they come as a dried, I know my daughter's away at college, and she really enjoys getting little packages with dried fruits in there because they can go with her in her backpack, or they can go with her anywhere, and she's got a real quick energy source.
Exactly. It's great. And I know we've done it for the summer camps where we've dehydrated strawberries and different fruits in small little bites. We've made for the campers, we've made their own trail mix or granola mix for them so they can have a good energy and healthy snack. And dehydrating and canning and freezing all are good ways for if you're on a limited sugar diet or if you're on a limited salt diet, where you can eliminate some of those things. You can find the recipes for those where you can eliminate.
Oh, that's a really good idea.
Yeah, because the sugar is really not in fruits and stuff. It's not really necessary. That's a taste type of thing.
That's kind of, you've grown up with that extra sugar taste.
But there are also Sugar substitute recipes. Don't ever use sugar substitute in a recipe where you calls for sugar, but there are sugar substitute recipes and sugar substitute pectins as well to use for candies. I like people who really enjoy jelly and things like that. They can still enjoy it, but reduce it. So there's
Reduce
good.
it down.
Yeah.
So it's a little more healthier.
Yeah, especially if you're on sugar restriction.
Right. Right.
In fact, I've made that for a friend who's a diabetic, and I came out pretty good.
Yeah. Well, and that's a good point that you bring up, because for diabetics, you have to be very careful, what you're doing. Your body doesn't process things the same way as others, and so it's really important to know that.
And you still like to enjoy that.
That's right. That's right. Well, and these are naturally occurring here. Now, and you brought also, I noticed, you have some salsa here as well. And the salsa is very colorful. And this is something that you made with the hot water bath?
You did it in the boiling hot water bath because it's acceptable in there because the acidity for the fruit, which would be the tomatoes.
Okay, we have tomato in the bowl. We have tomatoes,
onions, and a variety of different peppers.
Okay, and all of those are in.
All of those are in there, and the most important ingredient is the vinegar, which is the acid, which brings the pH up to where, even with the water bath, where it will kill potential microorganisms that could make you sick. So,
so even though the tomatoes are acidic, you still need to add the vinegar.
Exactly. Yeah, usually it's either vinegar or lemon juice. And one thing I should say, too, about people, they'll read about adding lemon juice. It's recommended now because of all the research that's gone in over the years, is that you use bottled lemon juice because that is at a 5% acidity, where you don't know if lemon or lime, whatever you're going to get off a tree or off a market, what that acidity is. So the recipes have been tasted. They've been proven to not cause any, that they will kill any microorganisms, that type of thing that might be dangerous. So you want to make sure that you do that. And that's really important. So basically all that's in there, and it is a recipe that's readily available, usually on an extension site, or I think it's on the home food preservation site I mentioned.
From Georgia?
From Georgia, yeah. The National Center for Home Food Preservation. That's in there is the vegetables that you see, but they have to follow it. Like I remember from the recipe by heart that it has to be 2 pounds of peppers, not more, not less. So you weigh out 2 pounds of peppers, and then you
cut them up.
Then you cut them up, and you bake them a little so you can peel the skin off. But to start with, it's 2 pounds, and 1 pound of onion, and I think it was 6 pounds of tomatoes, something like that. But the recipes are formulated so it's just the right amount.
So you weigh the vegetables before you cut them up, before, and I didn't even think you would have to take the peel off of a pepper. I would never have thought of that.
Well, it's sometimes, these are hot peppers, so, and I usually sometimes throw a bell pepper in there too. Just depends on the heat who you're making it for. So you can do a variety of peppers. But the skin can get a little bitter on some of the peppers. Okay. So you heat those and you take the skins off. It's okay if it gets in there, that's fine, but it's just a little bitter. So they recommend that.
So you peel off, so you heat those up, peel them off, and then you cut them all up?
You chop them all up in various.
And are they cooked again then, or just
yes, they're put in the big pot, and you have all your tomatoes that have been cored and chopped up. The skins have been taken off of those too by dipping them in hot water, and you just slip those off. And chopped onion, and you put everything to salt. There's a little bit of salt and the vinegar, and you just put that in there, and you stir it all up, and you bring it to a boil. And there's a certain amount of time you boil it, and you boil it. I think it's about 15 minutes or so. And then as it's boiled, then you're going to put it into your hot jars. You can see the jars here. There's different varieties and sizes of jars. But these are our pint jars. That's what the recipe calls for. And put that in the jar. And then the jar, you put the hot lid on, and you turn the ring on.
So the lids are in some hot water separately.
Lids are in hot water so that there's a little bit of rubber on the bottom of the lid so that it makes that pliable. Then all of that goes down. There's a rack. If you've seen those canners, they have this wire thing in it, and that's so you can lower the jars in without getting dangerous to your hands. So you lower
the water in there is, of course,
boiling as well. And then that's its bath it goes into. You put the lid on there, and you bring it back up to a boil, and you boil it for so long.
And when you put the lid on, do you also put this the part that screws on
ring,
as well?
yeah,
the ring, okay.
yeah, the little ring.
Okay, the ring goes on as well as the lid, and then you put it in the water bath.
Right. Okay. You have your lid; it goes on there,
and the lid.
And this is all hot.
And the lid has this little rubber part you were talking about.
You can see the rubber part there, right? And that goes on there.
And that's what's actually going to seal down.
That's going to see. That's when the air comes out. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the ring goes on there, and you don't put the ring on so tight that you can't get it on. You just put it on nice.
Just a little bit.
Just so it's on there, but not. Okay. You don't want to clamp it down. And then you boil it away, and then you take it out. We have some special little tongs that we use that kind of fit around the
jar
round
itself.
Yeah, they're roundish, and you take them out and set them out on the counter, on a towel or a cooling rack, and you wait for it to hear that little clicky little pop.
I remember that.
Yeah, remember that?
The little pop. Yeah,
the little pop.
And that means that the top part
has sealed.
Okay.
Yeah, and if it hasn't sealed, you'll be able to press down upon it like I'm doing now.
Okay.
And it'll go bounce up.
That means the air's still in there.
Yeah, or it means it has. If the next morning, if you still have that means you can. There is a way that you can take it, put a new lid on, and reheat it, and redo another bath.
Or use it right away.
Or you can, that can be your first jar, and keep any unused portion in the fridge.
Yeah, okay. The rest, though, could be stored in your cupboard.
The rest can be stored
or your pantry.
For 6 months to a year if it lasts that long.
Oh, okay. Good. All right, 6 months.
Yeah, and there's lots of really good salsa recipes out there.
Oh yeah, you can use.
Yeah, I mean there's
mango,
mango peach salsa, and yummy, and tomato, and there's one I used to make for the office at Christmas was a cranberry salsa.
Yeah,
and that was pretty popular too. So
so these are great gift ideas
They're
as well.
wonderful gift
we're starting
ideas.
To get close to that time of year.
Right, you can have your gifts made a month in advance.
Yeah, wow. Planning.
Can you imagine that?
Yeah, having not last minute stuff. So you have an opportunity to. Now let me ask you this: we've talked about how long this will last. 6 months to a year, maybe. What about the dried fruit? How long can we keep that?
Well, the dried fruit, if you're going to keep it for any length of time, like if you're going, have a ton of stuff and you're not going to eat it all up right away, you can put it in a container or a Ziploc bag and stick it in the freezer. It'll be fine, and then it'll come out and it'll still be dried when it defrosts, that type of thing. So if it's not going to be eaten up, I don't know around your house, it does. Mine in the house, it doesn't last very long.
No, it doesn't, but I'm thinking like when we were talking about this being a nice little gift, that this might also.
I would make that sooner towards, but there's no reason it can't set in if you're making it a week or 2 weeks ahead, can't sit in a very sealed, like a big, I hate to use a brand name, but a sealed Tupperware or Snapware type of container on the outside in your house.
So you can make it a couple weeks ahead.
Right.
Not like months, but.
Yeah, I wouldn't make it months ahead, but you can make it. Yeah, you can get ahead. And I mean, the banana, like I did the bananas last night, I think it was, and I think it was 5 hours at the most to do the bananas. So you can do a variety in a short amount of time if you have the right equipment.
Right.
Yeah. So if you're home on a Saturday, you can do. Even with a small one of 3 or 4 shelves, you can do, at least 3 a day probably if you're up running around. Set your timer.
Very good. Now, when we do the vegetables, I know you mentioned that, so you can use those and they keep the same amount of time, or if you're, or maybe put them in the freezer if you're reusing them.
Yeah, you can take and put them in the freezer. Just make sure all the moisture's out of your container so that you've burped your container. I keep. Myself, I mean, I have some in the freezer, but I'll do a bunch of the sweet onions to use those all during the winter. And I just have a jar in my pantry that has a sealing lid, an old-fashioned type, the canning jar. But I can just take out a handful and throw them in a stroganoff or something like that, and crock pot or whatever, and go away. I don't have to sit there and slice up onions.
Right.
That's really nice.
You cut down on your preparation time.
Right, exactly.
You've done it at one time, and then you just dry it.
And some people do, too. They do it for gifts, too. They'll make those soups in a jar,
I was just going to say that, yeah.
Yeah, so you can always throw, you can usually buy a lot of the stuff, the dried beans and stuff in the market to make those.
And you can put some of your dried vegetables in there.
If you had your dried onions and your dried peppers, whatever you felt was good, Wow,
that's a really good idea. Yeah. So those are some really good ideas for gifts for that. Now, anything else that when we talked a little bit about that, but I think one of the things we forgot when we first get vegetables and fruits, one of the first things we should do with them before we even cut them or use them is wash them.
Exactly.
And can you kind of go into that? Because I know there's a lot of questions
you don't want to wash it and then leave it on the counter. We want to wash it when you're going to get ready to use it.
Okay.
And then you want to wash with water, not soap and water, but plain water. And then you also want to be careful because microorganisms they're everywhere, no matter what. They're all over us, they're all over everything, but they're in the soil and the dirt and that type of thing. So, and in particular, things like melons that have that netty type of outside, like a cantaloupe or something where dirt can hide.
Okay.
But even a regular watermelon, you want to make sure that you wash it really well before you're going to cut it up. Before you slice into it.
Okay.
Because when you think about it, you have that nice knife, and you're going to go from the outside to the inside. You're going to pull it all the way through. So anything that's on the outside can be drawn into the inside, and you don't want to do that. So you want to wash that and rinse your knife off as well.
Yeah, a lot of people don't think that way. Even an apple, same thing with an apple.
Exactly. Yeah, you want to wash that off, and even the berries that are so tempting right in the carton, when strawberry season comes, stuff. You really should. Berries are very susceptible
to
dirt.
Ones that I picked and put in my mouth.
I know.
All the time when I was out
but
there.
I mean, food safety is an issue, and there's a lot that goes unreported, and it's a very serious thing.
We hear about it in the news all the time.
You hear about it when it's a really important. I mean, it really is a catastrophic type of thing. But there's hundreds of thousands of cases that don't get reported because people just think they have an intestinal something, but it is usually caused by food.
By the things that we put in our mouth.
Put in our mouth.
And now we know.
And hand washing. Make sure you wash your hands too
before
you prep it.
Well, and that's important because we go from one thing to another when we're in our lifestyle. We feed the dog 1 minute and we're petting the cat, and then we're cleaning whatever, and then we go right from that. So
to the kitchen. And most people, they don't think their own kitchen is, they think they're more apt to get something from the outside or at a restaurant or something like that. But research has shown that your own kitchen is probably the most dangerous place around.
Yeah. And that's usually the case of a lot of things. We underestimate a lot of things like that.
Right. So it's always good to make sure that you wash your hands. Please make sure you wash your hands before you're doing any food preparation, and that your counters have been washed and clean, and your work surface, and you're not, you hear that old thing, don't share the same cutting board for the chicken as the lettuce. Well, that's very true. You want to make sure you have different ones and that you clean them properly. A lot of them will go in the dishwasher nowadays, so that's a nice sanitizer. Very true.
Good way to sanitize.
Or you can sanitize, hot water and soap, and you can put a cap full of Clorox in a quart of water and use that to squirt things down to sanitize as well. So.
Okay. Well, I know that a lot of people make wine and stuff from fruits that they've got available. So that's probably another whole segment.
That's a whole segment, fermentation and yeast and all
all of that kind of thing. But that is another way to use your leftovers. Right. And I think, is there anything that you can think of? I know from my respect, I thought, well, I love blueberries and I use them so much. And I put them in the dehydrator, and they took forever.
Oh, and they're hard. That's why they're so expensive when you buy them.
Buy them as dried fruit. Yeah. So maybe there's some things that you know of as well that you might not want to suggest.
I used to freeze blueberries all the time because where I used to live, we had fields of blueberries. So blueberries freeze very well.
So that's a better way. If you got blueberries, freeze them.
Yeah, you can stick them on a cookie sheet and kind of partially freeze them, then throw them in a bag. They won't stick together, because that type of thing. And blueberries are really, really good. Another thing a lot of people I used to do is I would make up, like you were talking about the bananas, I would make up an applesauce, very low, little sugar in there so it didn't turn, but very low sugar applesauce in little individual containers. And it doesn't take much. You're just cooking the apples down, and you can use that in a lot of things, like you were talking about banana bread.
Yeah.
Or
as a substitute for some of the oils.
Right. You can use it for substitute some of the oils, and throw it in their muffins for a little flavoring, apple muffins, that type of thing. So there's all kinds of things that you can do, and especially if you have some extra fruit sitting around that, you're not going to be working with. So.
Well, and you mentioned that because we've talked about things that they've gotten as gifts, or people have grown them in their garden, but lots of times you may not grow your own strawberries, but there are times of the year when things are in season. And here in Florida is a good example of strawberries, when you can purchase them at a market. And you might want to get lots of them and then do a dehydration or a freezing
make
of
your own
those.
jam. So you can do the freezer jam, which is very simple. You can buy the little box of preserved pectin in the grocery store for doing different, whether it's hot water cooked jam or freezer jam, you can buy that. And it's pretty simple. Just follow the directions, wash your hands and follow the directions, and stick it in your freezer, and that's great too,
And that's a really good way to know for sure, like you said, how much sugar's in it, whatever other things you're adding into
and they, like
that.
I said, and they have the low sugar varieties now too. And the companies, the very respectable companies that have been around for years and years, the major ones who have these, have put the science and the research into it so that it is safe.
Well, and I think that
I wouldn't just buy it at somebody selling it out of the back of their car saying,
right.
Yeah, this is great,
Well, I think that's another thing to think about. And lots of times people give you samples of things to taste before you purchase them. And that's one way of looking at it. But another thing you want to keep in mind is that if you're not sure how to grow things, that's what the Extension Office can help you with. And it can also help you when things are available, because a lot of people come here, they're not from Florida, or they're not from this part of Florida, and they don't know when things are available.
And they're turned around. It's like the world is upside down.
Yep, very different. Very
strawberries
different
in
area.
December, January.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah, so we have strawberries when it's winter time.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's our time to enjoy strawberries, and blueberries come shortly thereafter.
Right,
so,
exactly.
A lot of things are different here in Florida, and they can get information as to when things are available.
Exactly.
They don't see them. Usually you'll know at your supermarket because they'll be reduced in price.
Yeah.
3 packs of strawberries for $5 or something like that. Will kind of give you an indication that they're available locally, because they're going to be
Or they'll be excited about Florida strawberries or Florida blueberries.
Yeah, even
like
our
that.
turnpike areas where we have rest areas will have things for you to taste. And one of the things that dries very well too, or that is very tasty, is citrus. So
the citrus is wonderful.
Another good
Can't
thing
beat
for
it.
you to use that. Yeah.
Yeah,
way
it's
to
the
do
most
that.
flavorful. Yeah. There's lots of things you can do with the citrus too. You can dehydrate that, or toss it in your water. Drink plenty of water to stay hydrated.
Everybody has lemon with their water, right?
Lemon with their water.
Yeah,
right?
so there's a
Do
lot
that
of
at
things
home.
you can do. Well, now that we've spiked everyone's interest and probably made them very hungry, I think there's lots of information out there. And if you have any questions, you can give Carla a call or give our office a call for more information about how to grow things as well as preserve what you might grow. So thank you for joining us, and we look forward to meeting with you next time, and we'll have an exciting adventure to take you on with Extension.